Pope Benedict, concerning the rights of workers, said, "In the year of globalization, the right of workers to join unions is even more important than it was in the 1890s.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
If you're listening to this, you probably know that Pope Francis passed away recently. And Pope Francis was an outspoken voice in the global church for the dignity of work and the rights of workers. He taught that work is sacred, that workers are not just, quote, units of production, but human beings with dignity that must be respected. He said that solidarity must be the foundation of social life, and that any economy that fails to respect workers' rights is an economy without a future. His vision offers a powerful call to action for labor and faith communities alike. So today we're going to talk to the executive director of the Catholic Labor Network about their mission, their reflections on Pope Francis's legacy on labor rights, their recent advocacy for federal employees, and why solidarity between faith and labor communities is more important than ever. And I do want to just say that we recognize a lot of people in our audience are like me and do not come from a Catholic background. Many of you may not identify with religion at all. Some of you may, in fact, have some stinging critiques of organized religion. Here in the South, we know all too well the ways certain religious groups and traditions have worked against a more just, equitable society. But the labor movement has always been a big tent, where solidarity is bigger than any one tradition. We need working people of all backgrounds and in all of our diversity, building a mass people-powered movement if we're going to win a better future. We don't have to agree on what to do on Sundays to agree that working people are getting a raw deal Monday through Friday. And throughout history, faith communities have played a vital role in advancing workers' rights, racial justice, and democracy. So today we're going to dive into that intersection, how faith and labor can strengthen each other in the fight for dignity, justice, and a better world for all workers. So Clayton, welcome back to the Valley Labor Report.
Thank you for having me. And I should give you an update before we go any further that while for a couple of decades I was the executive director of the Catholic Labor Network, because I've returned to my work at my union, the Construction Laborers Union, LIUNA, full-time, the executive director position has passed to somebody else, Amy Shalid Mayer out of Nashville, who I would recommend you get in touch with in the future. But I still am active in the network as labor advisor, and am happy to be here and share what I can about the state of the Catholic Labor Network and my thoughts on the Francis papacy and whatever else you want to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And love to know there's a Tennessean taking the reins. That's cool. Another Southerner. So for those folks who are unfamiliar, can you just briefly introduce what is the Catholic Labor Network and how did you get involved?
Yes, the Catholic Church in the Pope Leo XIII back in the 1890s set out Catholic doctrine on the working classes and on labor unions, and he said that under current economic conditions, workers were being exploited, and that they had a right to join labor unions in order to organize collectively. This became part of our church's teaching, passed down to the current day. Now, many Catholics do not know this. We are a group of faithful Catholics. Many of us are trade unionists. Some of us are in ministry. We have priests and nuns as well, and lay people who do ministry in the church, who are interested in educating Catholics about this teaching of their church and promoting worker justice more broadly. And we came together 30 years ago, a little more than 30 years ago in the early 90s, and have been active in promoting worker justice and solidarity ever since.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you started touching on this a little bit, but what specifically got you involved in the labor movement, and where do you see now that you have transitioned outside of that ED role?
I am At the time I got involved with the labor movement, I was working in a rubber factory in Chicago, where me and my coworkers attempted to form a labor union and were defeated. During that time, I also got involved with solidarity work, supporting a group of workers in downstate Illinois, the Staley workers, who had been locked, who suffered through a very long lockout in the early 90s that a few old timers who might be on this call might recognize that case because the folks involved went across the country preaching about and testifying to their experiences to build solidarity. So that was how I involved in labor activism and solidarity. I wound up later going back to school, and after that became a staff. Joined the staff of LIUNA, the Construction Laborers Union, where I work today. I also took a few years off when the executive director position was a full-time one. We received a grant from the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops to support our activities for several years, ending just 2 years ago. And during that time, I stepped away from my union role and to grow the Catholic Labor Network and do that work. I stay on as labor advisor. The grant that enabled us to do that work has expired. This is our interim director is on a part-time basis. The Catholic Labor Network is trying to figure out what we can do with our current resources in order to spread this message, and I am working with them on that.
So you touched on this already a little bit, but Catholic social teaching does have a long tradition of supporting workers' rights. Can you just explain? I mean, first, what do we mean by Catholic social teaching? But then tell us a little bit about how does this inform, the work today of the Catholic Labor Network, and what do you think are some of the most important lessons from these teachings for the moment we're in right now?
Well, Pope Leo the 13th, who I mentioned in the 1890s, wrote an encyclical letter, which is an instruction to the world's Catholic bishops regarding Catholic doctrine, to say that the values of the gospel, values that we believe in as Christians, the ones taught in our scripture, lead us to concern about workers' rights. We are called to be neighbor to everyone and to support everyone in need. And the Catholic doctrine laid out said that all work has dignity, no matter what your job is. You deserve to be treated with respect. You deserve to work in safe and decent conditions. You deserve to earn a living wage that can support a family. This is what the Catholic Church teaches about is essential in our economy, which comes ahead of profits, which comes ahead of the markets. It comes ahead of all its workers have a prior claim on a living wage, and they are entitled to organize. And in fact, the Pope encouraged them to organize trade unions in order to pursue that living wage. That call was echoed repeatedly by popes who followed Pope Leo for a century and elaborated on in the current context. The most emphatic and definitive statement of it actually came from Pope Benedict, who the world perceived as a conservative, but he was a conservative in that he held to Catholic doctrine, what had been taught by the church. And concerning the rights of workers, he said, in the era of globalization, the right of workers to join unions is even more important than it was in the 1890s, which is a very serious injunction. And for that, we feel, we who have knowledge of this teaching, the Catholic Labor Network is a place where we activists in the labor movement who are Catholic have gathered. And we promote this to Catholics across the country. We also take action when necessary in solidarity with workers, and Perhaps the most recent activity in that regard, which has drawn attention, was we just sent a letter to President Trump. We would send letters periodically to senators and to presidents concerning Catholic social teaching. And in this case, we were told him we were greatly disappointed and concerned about the executive order that he issued that stripped union rights from most federal employees. All workers have the right to join a union in Catholic teaching, and based on that Catholic teaching, we appealed to him to rescind that executive order and restore their right to organize. This was just a couple of we just sent this letter a couple of weeks ago. It's been picked up in the Catholic press, but we have not received a response, direct response from the administration at this time.
Hey, 5 seconds, just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
You mentioned, Pope Leo XIII and Benedict, and Pope Francis certainly was an advocate of workers and spoke about the dignity of work and solidarity with workers. What do you think his legacy on labor issues will be?
Well, that's interesting. He did not add a lot to Catholic social. People perceive him as a progressive and Benedict as a conservative, but they basically were speaking from the same page regarding Catholic social teaching on unions. There were no large changes or elaborations of that during Francis' papacy. What Francis did was he spent concerning worker justice. He had a big heart for workers who are in the informal sector, workers who are obliged to work off the books and weren't receiving protection of Social Security and workplace safety and things that governments are supposed to provide. And he had a great empathy with workers who were displaced, who were immigrants in different societies, and that's and that's a group with a lot of overlap. He appreciated and tried to draw attention to the fact that large numbers of undocumented workers in the United States, for instance, were being exploited, and across and in Europe and in South America. He did not single out the United States in this respect, but he urged labor unions and our societies to make a greater effort to reach out to those on the periphery of society and the economy, and to do more to advocate for workers who were exploited because they were migrants or because they were working. They didn't have access to formal sector employment.
I think that's really interesting what you drew out in terms of Pope Francis and Pope Benedict, and how Francis maybe didn't add to the teaching per se, but through his persona, through his leadership, and just sort of being willing to stand with the least of these, that was sort of a way to champion worker justice, even if he wasn't necessarily adding to the social teaching a whole lot. And was there anything really that stands out to you as as a Catholic and a labor unionist when it comes to Pope Francis? Any particular actions or quotes or teachings? Just was there anything in his leadership that you find especially inspiring for working class movements?
Well, he did, just to elaborate on my earlier statement, in meeting with the Italian trade union leaders of the Labor Federation, he encouraged them in their work, but he also said that, or reminded them that it's incumbent on those of us who have the protection of a labor union to be constantly reaching out and organizing new workers in the informal sector. He said, these people are suffering great injustice, and you all are the ones who are in the position to reach out and express solidarity with them and try to help them in their causes. So the Catholic Labor Network, for instance, spent a lot of time advocating on the issue of wage theft, which largely hits non-union workers. We workers in unions, if there's a problem with our paycheck, we can go to the union and usually get it fixed in a hurry. But that's not the case with large numbers of undocumented workers in the United States, for instance, who are regularly cheated of their wages by employers who know that they don't have access to the justice system to get it fixed.
Thank you. Speaking of Pope Francis sort of looking out for the most vulnerable, one of his last acts was to condemn the genocide in Palestine. What do you see as the role of both Catholicism and the labor movement in that fight?
Um, as an advocate from the Catholic Labor Network, I should say, our organization, by we are known under the terms of church law as an association of the faithful, and we are committed to remaining faithful to Catholic doctrine in all our public teaching. We also, as an organization, are extremely uh, careful not to speak outside of our area of competence. We have an area of expertise regarding Catholic teaching on labor unions. We bring a lot of institutional knowledge of what labor unions are, but that's where we limit our where our organization is confined to. We are not an organization that has views on foreign policy. So it would be so we really don't have a lot to offer on the situation in Gaza, on abortion rights, on a variety of other issues. It's something that we probably have members on many sides on who have different positions on all these issues that are outside the focus of worker justice per se.
Thanks.
So I'm afraid I can't share anything with you about Gaza. I don't know anything.
Yeah, that's fair. I know, a number of unions, I believe even the AFL-CIO, have sort of, made statements. So I think that's why I was curious. As,
Yeah,
going forward.
I on that topic, I truly wish that the AFL would be a little bit more humble in that respect about taking stances on issues outside of worker justice and economics. I don't honestly feel like a lot of workers are looking to the AFL for advice on abortion or foreign policy, to be honest with you. And I do know a lot of people end up who ought to be who are labor union members, end up alienated if the leadership is taking a position that is different from their own on issues of these sort.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, and I think that's one of the things we wrestle with all the time in this movement, and wrestle with on this show, and we'll be wrestling with today in some of the conversations we have for sure. So something I wanted to just pivot to is, as we're wrapping up, what do you think a labor movement infused with faith and dignity and really building a faith and labor coalition, what could that look like? What should it look like in the South, but also more broadly? But certainly here in the South, we know that faith is a huge impact, a huge tradition. More so than other parts of the country. So I'm just curious if you could talk a little bit about a faith and labor coalition and what that could look like.
I had earlier in my career doing this, I had a lot of good experience with the organization Interfaith Worker Justice. The Catholic Labor Network was actually one of the groups that helped found the National Interfaith Worker Justice Organization way back in the 90s. They had a very good feel for the relationship between faith and labor organizations, and what what really was practical to accomplish, what a faith organization could and couldn't do, and what a union could and couldn't do, and where they overlapped. In the course of our time, in the course of my time at the Catholic Labor Network, we worked a great deal with both the church and the AFL-CIO on looking for a path to citizenship for undocumented workers, so that they would be able to organize and protect their rights in the same way that and enjoy the same labor rights that citizens of the United States have. So those are some of the interfaith worker justice was a model in its day of faith labor organizing, and did a lot of initiatives around the country in the South and elsewhere. Um, Working on focusing on the immigration issue is uh, was an area of agreement between the Catholic Church and the AFL-CIO. Now, every faith organization is going to have different commitments and going to find different places where their teaching overlaps with labor. So it's a long process of people who belong to a religious tradition or congregation, and people in the labor movement having deep conversations and finding out where their sentiments align. I I will leave it at that.
Yeah, absolutely. It could be really tough work and relationship driven work and something that has to be long term and ongoing. And so, yeah, I really appreciate that. And as we wrap it up, was there any final thoughts that you had that you wanted to share about, the work that y'all are doing, or just what you think about where the Catholic Church is moving in the future?
That's a good question. The Catholic Labor Network, a lot of our activity, honestly, is focused internally in the Catholic Church, both on communicating with the hierarchy and their staff, and also reaching out to Catholics in the pews who are not familiar with this teaching. 50 years ago, 70 years ago now, back in the 40s and 50s, the Catholic Church was very heavily involved with the labor movement. And in fact, many Catholic priests and religious activists ran labor union schools where they educated union members on how to organize, as well as what the church taught about organizing. Both the church-going Catholic population and the trade union membership in the United States is substantially smaller today than it was then. We've got a lot of work trying to remind people in the church what this teaching is and why it's still relevant today, and why we should be talking about it and focused on it and shaping our actions by it. So that's really the heart of the Catholic Labor Network's mission today, is working to educate Catholics around the country who believe that this is part of their faith, and that they should embrace it.
Right, right. Well, thank you so much, Clayton. I really appreciate it. Encourage folks to check out Catholic Labor Network if they want to find more. But yeah, thank you again for being on the Valley Labor Report today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, really appreciated that conversation. And I think faith and labor coalition building is really important to the work we're doing here in the South. And like I said, as leading into this interview, we recognize that, our audience and certainly the working class comes at this from very diverse perspectives. No faith, lots of faith, everything in between. And it's important that we be able to build relationships across those different categories, across those different spectrums of belief. And I did want to just end before we go to break with a quote from Pope Francis. Solidarity is more than acts of generosity, important as they are. It is a call to form a community of brothers and sisters who accept and care for one another.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.